Mabel walked out of room 306 with her body moving but her soul left behind. The air outside felt heavier than the walls she had just escaped. The sound of traffic and the chatter of strangers, all of it clashed with the storm raging inside her. Her mind played Bajira's words. I needed children and you gave them to me, so don't make this a drama. Those words replayed like a cursed chorus. She remembered the nights he called her queen and the mornings he kissed her forehead, the promises he whispered about forever. Now she saw them for what they were. There were lines from a well-rehearsed script played by a man who had never loved her. When she got home, the children ran to her, their little arms wrapping around her legs, and for the first time in her life she could not bend down to hug them back immediately because her heart was too heavy. She stood frozen until her elder son tugged at her dress and said, "Mommy, are you okay?" Mabel forced a smile, blinking away tears. "Yes, my love, Mommy is fine." That night, after putting the children to bed, she sat alone in the dark living room. The house that once echoed with laughter now felt like a cage. She stared at the wedding portrait on the wall. She almost rose to smash the frame to pieces, but something inside her stopped her hand. Instead, she whispered, "No, not yet." The following days were torture. Gerard called, pretending everything was normal. "How are the kids? And hope you are managing well," he asked. His voice was casual and almost mocking, as if daring her to challenge him. Mabel answered politely, never mentioning the hotel and never confronting him on the phone. She knew instinctively that shouting would give him power, and power was the one thing she had to reclaim slowly and carefully. But her body betrayed her. She couldn't eat and she couldn't sleep. When she closed her eyes, she saw Jira's hand resting on that man's knee. When she tried to pray, her words drowned in tears. Her mother noticed her sudden weight loss and asked, "Mabel, are you sure you are all right? This doesn't look like ordinary stress, so." Mabel wanted to confide in her, but she swallowed the truth. How could she tell her mother that the son-in-law she once praised was living a double life and that the man she thought was a blessing was the very thorn in her daughter's flesh? One evening, Clara, her friend, came over unannounced. The moment she saw Mabel's swollen eyes, she pressed in. "Mabel, something is wrong with you, and just know that I won't leave you until you tell me." Mabel broke down. She wept until her chest ached, then poured everything out. The hotel, the man, and Jira's bold confession. Clara sat in stunned silence, her hand covering her mouth. When Mabel finished, Clara whispered, "My God, Mabel, this is bigger than cheating. This is betrayal of the highest order. What will you do?" Mabel shook her head, her voice hoarse. "I don't even know, but one thing I know is that I cannot stay in this house and waste away. I will not let him kill me slowly." Clara squeezed her hand. "Then you need a plan. Don't rush and don't confront him yet. Save, prepare, and protect your children." The words sank deep, and for the first time since the discovery, Mabel felt a flicker of clarity. The pain remained, but beneath it, something stronger began to form. That night, she stood again before the wedding portrait. Her eyes lingered on Jira's smile. She shook her head and murmured, "You think you have won? No, darling. You have only created another version of me, stronger and wiser. And guess what? You will not see me coming." When Gerard returned from his so-called conference, Mabel expected awkward silence, but what she got was worse. It was control laced with quiet threats. He walked into the house with his usual polished look, dropped his suitcase, and greeted the children warmly. He kissed each one on the forehead, asked about school, and even handed out little gifts he had bought. But when the children went upstairs, he said in a low tone, "Mabel, come to the study. She followed him reluctantly, her stomach twisting. Inside, Gerard shut the door and leaned against the desk. His eyes pinned her like nails. I know what you did. Mabel froze. What do you mean? You intentionally came to that hotel to embarrass me. Her throat went dry. Gerard, you embarrassed yourself. I only... Enough, he interrupted her. He stepped closer, lowering his voice to a dangerous whisper. Listen to me carefully. Whatever you think you saw, if you ever breathe a word of it outside, if you ever try to dent my reputation, I will make sure you get lost without a trace. And I mean it. I will make sure nobody finds you. Mabel, not even your family. Her knees weakened. She backed away slowly, clutching her hands together. You think people will believe you over me? Gerard continued. Me, the respected husband, the successful man and the father of three? No one will ever believe your tears, my dear, so you better keep quiet and be wise. That night, Mabel laid in bed with her heart pounding with fear. She realized that her situation was more dangerous than she thought. Gerard wasn't just living a double life, he was determined to protect it at all costs. The only option left was to move out quietly like smoke slipping through cracks. The next morning, she put on a brave face. She cooked Gerard's breakfast and served it with all smiles. But behind that mask, her mind was racing. She needed an exit plan, not just for herself but for her children. She began by saving secretly. Each time Gerard gave her money for groceries, she bought only what was necessary and hid the rest. She sold jewelries and she stopped going to unnecessary outings just so she could save more. Gerard, meanwhile, carried on with his double life, smug and overconfident. He still went for conferences, still came home with fake smiles and carefully chosen words. He no longer touched Mabel and no longer pretended to care beyond appearances. But he didn't know that with each day, his wife was building a new world behind his back. She researched apartments in faraway cities using an online friend who worked in real estate. They communicated through coded messages so Gerard would never suspect. At night, when Gerard slept soundly, she lay awake, her mind rehearsing every step of her escape. How she would gather the children, what she would carry, which documents to hide and where to keep the money. The thought of disappearing terrified her, but the thought of staying, the thought of living under threat, and the thought of raising her children in a house built on lies terrified her more. One evening, Clara visited again. They spoke in hushed tones. Mabel, are you sure about this? Clara asked. Running away is not small. You will be cutting ties completely. Mabel's eyes glistened, but her voice was firm. Clara, you said I should be ready to get lost without a trace. I would rather choose my own disappearance than wait for his. Clara claps her hands together. Then I will help you. And from that night, Mabel's secret preparation gained speed. By the end of that year, she had managed to secure a small modest apartment in a distant city. The landlord knew her only as Mrs. Ada, a quiet widow with 3 children. She paid, and no one in Gerard's circle knew. One morning, Gerard said he was going for his usual conference. Mabel cooked his favorite breakfast, set the table neatly, and moved like a woman who has surrendered to routine. But inside, she was counting minutes. He came down with a suitcase rolling behind him and flashed that careful smile he wore for pictures. He kissed his children and then stood before Mabel. I'll be staying for 4 days. Keep the house in order. I always do, she replied steady. He searched her face for a flicker of rebellion. He found only calm. Good, he said. He lifted his suitcase, glanced at his watch, and walked away without eating. Mabel waited until the sound of his car faded completely. Then she exhaled one long controlled breath and turned the key in the lock. She moved with quiet precision, the way a soldier moves before the first cut. She put the children in front of the TV with their favorite cartoons and returned to her room. From the top shelf of the wardrobe, she brought down the old box and counted the money she had been saving. Next, she brought down documents, birth certificates, immunization cards, and school reports. She slid everything into a brown envelope and taped it shut. She stepped into the children's room and packed everything. She went to the kitchen, packed the necessary things that would make life easy for her. Then she opened the fridge, took out perishables, and quietly handed them to the neighbor through the back door. "Mother Mabel, you dey travel?" the woman asked, surprised. "Just a short visit," Mabel replied. "Keep the food, please." The woman nodded and was so happy to receive them. Of course, who wouldn't be happy? The next day, they were ready. Clara brought in the driver around 3 a.m. plus 3 guys who helped to pack in their things carefully. When they were done, Mabel brought out the SIM card from her phone, placed it in a bowl, and then poured water on it just to remind herself that she was done. She told the children to enter the bus, that they were going for an adventure. They giggled and obeyed. 4 hours later, they switched vehicles at the fuel station just as Clara had planned. A second driver took over, just in case Gerard locates the first driver. Several hours later, they arrived in the new city. The address the landlord had given her led to a quiet compound lined with pawpaw trees. The caretaker was on ground to give her the house key, and he also organized boys who will help offload her loads. "Thank you, Father," she whispered, "for the road, for the courage, and for what you will do with my life in this new city." Gerard returned on Sunday evening. He rolled his suitcase into the living room and paused, expecting the children's footsteps as usual to welcome him, but silence met him like an empty plate. "Mabel," he called, but no one answered. He dropped his keys into the ceramic bowl on the table. He went to the room and saw his wife's wardrobe empty. He checked the children's room, and that was when his heart started singing "Bim Bim." He dialed Mabel's number, but it wasn't reachable. He moved to the kitchen, opened the drawers one by one, but they were as dry as bone. "Mabel," he called into the room that was not listening. "Don't be foolish." He called his mother-in-law. "Good evening, Mama. Is Mabel with you?" The old woman's voice brightened. "Ah, Okogo. No, is everything okay?" "Of course, ma, everything is fine," he lied smoothly. He hung up and stood in the doorway confused. He called Clara for the first time and there was no answer. He called again and Clara lied like a trained personnel that she hadn't seen her either. By morning, the house felt smaller. He moved like a man who had lost something he swore he didn't need. He took the day off, then the next, and began to search. He drove to the children's school and then he forced a smile. He said to the head teacher, "My wife mentioned the transfer. I want to confirm where she moved them." The head teacher leaned back. "No, sir, we didn't receive any official transfer request. She checked the file just to confirm it." He went to the station. "Officer, my wife left home with the children. I want them back within the next 72 hours. The officer studied him, then scribbled in a notebook. "Any domestic incidents?" "None," he replied. "Any threats or any restraining orders?" "None," Gerard snapped. "I am the one making a report." The officer's eyes sharpened. "Sir, did she leave a note?" "No note, officer." "Then she left deliberately and not in panic. We cannot force a woman to return to a marital home." Gerard leaned forward. "Officer, she kidnapped my children." "Sir, the officer said carefully. A mother living with her children is not automatically a kidnap. You may go to family court. He left the station feeling like a punctured tire. Meanwhile, in the new city, life began to stitch itself quietly. Mabel registered the children in a mother's academy 2 streets away, and luckily for her, she found a new job with a good pay, so she became so busy making money and still wore the title of a widow proudly. The first few weeks were not easy though, because the children asked questions she could not fully answer, but she found her way to make them gradually forget that Gerard existed. When Gerard could no longer trace Mabel or the children, his world began to shrink. At work, he still wore his iron suits, his polished shoes, and carried his calm voice into meetings, but behind every handshake was a hand that trembled slightly. His colleagues noticed. He grew impatient, snapping at juniors for small mistakes. Deadlines that he once met with ease now slipped through his fingers, and he stopped joining office banter, preferring to shut himself in his office with the blinds drawn. Victor felt it most. Their meetings, once filled with stolen laughter and whispered secrets, turned into tense silence. Gerard no longer relaxed with him. He carried the frustration of his empty house into their moments together. He began to demand rather than share, and he began to dominate rather than connect. Victor, on his part, tried to endure it, but soon the strain showed. What was once intimacy turned into punishment. Victor translated his ill treatment into mercilessness, that he no longer cared if Gerard was comfortable. He only cared about the void inside him. He became rough whenever they were having those ungodly acts, and that brought about sores. And soon, those sores developed into an infection he could not ignore because Gerard began to smell. The infection became a wall between them. Their once constant meetings grew fewer. The chemistry turned into complaints and the bond into blame. Gerard, who once thought he could have both worlds, now found himself with none. And till today, he's still moving from one hospital to another, looking for solution. Hey besties, how are you all doing? For me, I am doing just fine. Before I sign off from today's story, I would like to say this. Gerard's type is everywhere. Men and women who marry not because of love, but because of what they can get. Let's say children, money, or image. And when their mission is complete, they begin to deny the very one who gave them everything. Marriage without truth is a ticking bomb. Don't be blinded by appearances. Look inward for honesty, for care, and for character. And again, be very attentive to body movements and what they say during heated arguments or fun moments. And if you find any red lights, kindly dust your slippers and run as fast as your legs can carry without looking back. Because a broken relationship is far better than a broken home. Kindly like the story. Share your thoughts with me in the comments, as I would like to read from you. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please punch on that subscribe button so you can join the Karma tribe. Until I bring the next interesting story your way, it's a goodbye from here, and God bless you.